This is the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B.
So there was always, Atlanta is a dance scene. One of my main soapboxes is talking about how Atlanta has changed from a dancing city to a lounging city, because Atlanta was always about dance. You go to the parties, you come out sweaty, your hair is no longer what it was, ladies, right?
And let me. I want you to come back to that, but I want to mention one thing. You mentioned I grew up on Campbellton Road. I spent 2 years on Campbellton Road. At the time that I was on Campbellton, you had Mr. V's Figure Eight, you had Cisco's, you had Marco's, and I know I'm gonna leave one out, but Campbellton Road was booming, dog. I mean, I'm a kid. I ain't getting in.
Right.
I'm not even close to getting in, but I knew about it.
Yeah.
And then on the south side, you had Charles. I forgot what Simpson Road. Yeah, Charles. Mm-hmm. And then if you were like into blues culture, Southern soul, you had Chit Chat.
Yep. And Ellery's.
You know what I'm saying? So you had all and then not to mention the strip clubs. You had, used to be, Metropolitan now, but it used to be Stewart Avenue. You had
Stewart Avenue. There was three.
You had the Purple Onion.
Yep. Purple Onion, Flashers, and there was one other. There was one other one that was on Metropolitan. So Atlanta. It
was Stewart Avenue. Then you had the Blue Flame over, the Bankhead
on the
area,
west side. Yeah,
on the west side. And then, of course, you had Magic City. But you had so much influence of music. And I agree with you. I mean, that's the best way to put it. I remember coming up through school. And Vi, you know this. We spent time, we'd be driving back for one purpose, to come up here to go to the Phoenix Dance Club. I mean, we didn't, we didn't, by the time we'd come home on break, Vi might be hanging with me. We just come in, put our clothes down in the house, and go straight to the Phoenix and then come back, leave it as soon as the bus from Spelman took off. At the Phoenix.
Well, there's no reason to stay.
Why am I here? So you know what I'm saying? The upstairs, downstairs, the warehouse, the garage. DJ Daz, right? All that good stuff, man. So I say all that to say that's my influence, man. That period. I mean, go ahead, man.
So I didn't realize that 1978 to maybe 1986 had a subgenre title. But I was watching a documentary on YouTube the other day, and they were talking about boogie funk. And I was like, what the heck is boogie funk? And it's really how because I used to just refer to it as up-tempo R&B. It's like disco was a pale version of up-tempo R&B.
Excellent. Best way to put it.
But what happened after that disco era, when you had, that 1981, big synthesizer bass lines, these, instead of having the big bands, you got, single producers like a Kashif, like a Steve Arrington really coming in and, doing this synthesizer-based music, producing it by themselves, but still having the elements that we are supposed to have, So the bass guitar was replaced by a synth bass. The strings were replaced by synthesizer strings. But at the same time, we still had all of the elements and pieces of music, of everything that we already knew and liked within it. It was just changing from band music to producer music. You know what I mean? That's the way I kind of look at it.
Exactly. And that's why, in my opinion, and I want you to keep going, Talib, that's why the producers became the spotlight when the synth came along.
Yes.
In my opinion. I think you had producers with the band in that era that I call we call it the boogie era, but we say post-disco. Black people weren't really like heavy into disco, but we felt the influence. We heard the songs like Ring My Bell, which is it still has a sway to it still has a vibe to it, or Knock on Wood. Those kind of songs where we knew they were disco songs, but they still had a vibe on the R&B charts. But you're absolutely right, man. When the synth, especially when Prince came along, and then you had the Prince versus Rick James era, it really became heavy synth. But that Minneapolis sound changed everything.
You've been listening to This is the G Podcast. And This is the G Podcast is a production of the Castropolis Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.